Cheryl going to ask you a question,
Yeah.
but after you
was there
respond to it.
any evidence that the captain, in making his decision, considered race at all?
There was no evidence presented either way. However, in the event report, the statement that American Airlines claims that Mr. Simmons made was "damn white bitch," which would indicate that Mr. Simmons was a minority, and so that the captain could have made his decision based on that.
But anything that the captain articulated, anything in what he may have articulated that indicates a racial prejudice?
The captain didn't articulate anything.
Okay.
There is no evidence, there's been nothing presented in regards to how or why the captain made his decision.
All right. I understand.
With the court's...
You've divided the argument, and is it time for your co-counsel?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, we will give you a minute or so for rebuttal, but you'll have to choose between the two of you who does it. We don't allow you both to do it.
Your Honor, I will do rebuttal. And I would like to respond to Judge Fitzgerald's question. The question is, what do we know? Well, to be honest with you, we don't know if the passenger was moved to first class. We don't know if the things were said. We don't even know if the incident occurred. And the reason we don't know that is because the entire evidence that has been presented is pure hearsay. We've never got a chance in court to find out whether those facts really occurred. All we know is if you take the if you use the fact that the event report could perhaps be used not for the truth of the matter, we would agree that he got kicked off the airplane. We have absolutely no reason to know whatsoever why he got kicked off the airplane. Now, very quickly, I would like to move just very quickly to the issue of emotional distress. It was never discussed in the court below, and in fact, Mr. Simmons said, "I was thrown off the airplane," and I quote, "with establishment discrimination before an audience of 100 passengers, all to my humiliation and distress." Well, the court below did not deal with it. There's three possible ways to look at this. If one reads a pro se complainants very broadly, which they should in this case, the first one is attached to the actual civil rights claim itself, in which case it would fail or it would succeed if the civil rights claim succeeded.
Counsel, would you please speak up?
I'm sorry, Your Honor. It would fail or it would succeed if the civil rights claim itself failed or succeeded. The other one is under California law for over 100 years, it has been possible to claim that there was a violation of the requirement for good faith and fair dealing in a contract. And under that test, Mr. Simmons would not be required to undergo the Burdine test, the three-pronged test. All he would have to show was a violation of a contract and a violation of good faith and fair dealing in that contract.
I want to ask you a question that's purely directed to what information of any kind that Mr. Simmons put in the record.
Yes, Your Honor.
With that preface, the question is, was anything said to Mr. Simmons when he was removed from the flight other than, "Will you please come with us"?
Your Honor, to the best of our knowledge, from what we have in the record below, nothing was said to him until he stepped off the airplane. Then there were some remarks he made.
Can't we assume that some words were spoken to him that caused him to gather his stuff up and walk off the plane?
Oh, no, Your Honor. Get your stuff and walk off the plane.
Okay.
That's what he claims happened.
Was that said in some desultory way,
Your
as
Honor,
far as we know? Does he claim that?
he claims that he was humiliated in front of all
I
the passengers.
understand that, but was the language that was used that resulted in him getting out of his seat, packing up his gear, and exiting the flight, does he claim it was desultory, inflammatory, derogatory, or racially demeaning?
Your Honor, I do not know the answer to that question because in the record below it's not indicated.
He did file some kind of affidavit.
He did indeed, and it was a verified
Is there
complaint.
anything in that affidavit that would respond to the question I just asked you?
Your Honor, not that I know of. That language used against him was inflammatory in itself.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay. We'll give you about a minute for rebuttal.
Thank you, Your Honor.
We'll hear from American Airlines.
May it please the Court, I'm Philip Ross, and I represent American Airlines, the defendant and appellee. American Airlines does not discriminate against any of its passengers, and there was absolutely no evidence presented in this case that even raises a suspicion of discrimination.
Are pilots permitted to remove passengers for any reason?
Pilots are permitted to remove passengers where they believe that there is a safety
How about
concern.
answering my question?
For any reason?
Are they permitted to remove any passenger for any reason?
Not for any reason, although they do have wide discretion under 49 U.S.C. 44902.
And isn't there a booklet of recommended procedures for the removal of a passenger for safety reasons?
American Airlines has safety policies.
Was that followed in this case?
It was followed in this case, Your Honor.
Could you explain to me how?
It was followed in this case because a report was made to the captain that Mr. Simmons was engaged in certain obscenities.
Was he warned?
He was not warned, but the policy...
Isn't that required?
No, it is not required. The policy provides that the captain has the discretion to remove an individual prior to takeoff if the captain believes that the person's engaged in misconduct. And
Aren't there different categories of passenger behavior?
Those categories of passenger behavior deal with in-flight disturbances and have nothing to do with this case.
And so it's the airline's position that this was not an in-flight disturbance?
No, the plane had not yet taken off. It was still on the ground. This was prior to takeoff. And therefore, the provision in American Airlines safety policy that applies is the policy that says the captain can remove a passenger prior to takeoff if the captain believes that the conduct that's been reported could possibly escalate during flight.
Let me ask you this question. It's the airline's position that the other passenger who complained, the woman, was as an accommodation moved up to first class. Is that correct?
Yes, she was.
Okay. Did she complain thereafter?
She did not complain thereafter, but she was concerned enough by the
You can
particular...
just answer the question,
No.
counsel. If you want to argue, you'll be given plenty of opportunity to do that, I promise you.
No, she
So
did
she
not.
did not complain after she was moved.
No, she did not.
So as far as we know on this record, she was entirely satisfied by the flight attendant's decision, which was within that attendant's authority to move the passenger to first class, correct?
Correct.
Correct. Was there any complaint from any other passenger after that about Mr. Simmons' behavior?
No.
What do we know about what it was that Mr. Simmons said?
The report from the passenger was that Mr. Simmons was stating out loud that, making references to damn white bitches.
Okay. Was he talking on the cell phone?
The evidence was not that he was talking on a cell phone, it's simply that he was making those statements.
Did the passenger say that the statement was directed to her?
No, the passenger did not say it was directed to her, and that's, if I can, Your Honor, that is one of the concerns here. The statement clearly indicates that Mr. Simmons was upset with respect to some unspecified person. Could have been another passenger, could have been a flight attendant. We don't know, but he was upset about a person. It's not simply that he's using a profanity, but that the profanity he's using in this case indicates that he's upset about some unspecified person. That's what makes the safety concern real in this case.
Do we know what the attendant said to the captain?
We know that the attendant reported...
Do we know what the attendant said to the captain? Did the flight attendant, was it a female flight attendant?
It was a female flight attendant.
Okay. Do we have an affidavit from her?
No, we do not.
Was her deposition taken?
No, it was not.
Do we have an affidavit from the captain?
No, we do not.
Was his deposition taken?
No, it was not.
Then I suspect the answer to my question is that we don't know what the flight attendant said to the captain, right?
What we know from that's correct. What we know from the record is that the captain made the determination that Mr. Simmons be removed and that he made a decision in order to guarantee the safety of other passengers.
What harm would befall American Airlines if there were an evidentiary hearing at which time the attendant testified as to what she saw and observed and what she reported to the captain, and the captain stated his basis for deciding to remove the passenger?
Well, the harm, Your Honor, is that we provided sufficient evidence on summary judgment of a legitimate, non-discriminatory reason, and under the Burdine test and under the McDonnell-Douglas test, which everyone agrees is the appropriate test here, Mr. Simmons had the burden at that point to present substantial specific evidence of pretext, and he agrees. There's no dispute that he presented no such evidence. The primary argument made by Mr. Simmons' counsel on appeal is that the event report is supposedly inadmissible hearsay.
Let's assume that it is. Under Ninth Circuit law, if employer or person who's alleged to have engaged in discriminatory actions, words or conduct, articulates a non-discriminatory reason, a non-pretextual reason for what they did, and the respondent proves that that's inaccurate, does that meet the burden?
The respondent can meet the burden in two ways, either by direct evidence or by circumstantial evidence.
Isn't there circumstantial evidence in this record that American Airlines did not follow its own safety procedures?
No, because the only safety procedure that's applicable here, and the only safety procedure that American Airlines has referenced, is a decision to remove this individual prior to takeoff based on a safety concern. There's no discussion.
Can you read to the court that provision or cite
Yes,
that
absolutely.
provision in the record that deals with passenger behavior before takeoff?
It is in the...
Tell us where it is in the record.
Yes, the appellant supplemental excerpt of record. It's under tab 4, page 41. And I'll read additional techniques to prevent misconduct from escalating. Passenger misconduct requiring captain's attention prior to departure may result in removal of the passenger from the aircraft. The captain should assess whether the misconduct on the ground may escalate in flight. That is, there is no specific procedure associated with it.
What information did the captain have that indicated that the behavior would escalate during flight?
The information the captain had was what was reported to him, and the captain had...
Which we don't know. You've previously conceded we don't know.
all of the specifics other than there was the report of the insanities being made.
Is there anything even in the report that suggests that there was some danger of this behavior escalating?
Well, what the report says is that, and I quote, the captain made a decision in order to guarantee the safety of other passengers. And the captain...
You have a very interesting habit of not answering my questions. My question is there anything in that report or anything in the record that indicates